Welcome to the Wrestling Philosophy Show, where we discuss unique perspectives and beliefs on the sport of wrestling. Give us a follow or subscribe on various social media platforms, including YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Enjoy the show.
So glad to have Coach Barnett and Coach Mizer on. We actually recorded this a few months ago, but I thought it was more fitting to release this now that the off-season is here and they talk about the off-season work you put in to get recruited. They both have some great takes, former college wrestlers themselves and now coaches. I hope you guys enjoy this show. Thank you, Zach and Jason. Joined today with Coach Barnett and Coach Mizer. What's going on, fellas?
What's up, man?
How are you?
Good. Been trying to get both you on separately, and then came across a little Twitter chat. I was like, man, it'd be good to get both these guys on and discuss some ideas and philosophies on the sport or debate or whatever you want to call it. So for our listeners, Jason, can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
I grew up in Central Ohio, Columbus, Ohio. Went to St. Francis de Sales. I went to Ohio State University to wrestle. Went to Iowa Central University to wrestle after some things happened at Ohio State. But 4-time placer, 3-time finalist, 2-time champ in high school. Now just trying to give back to the kids and get kids in better situations.
Right. And so you're at Kaufman and started Beast Mode Wrestling Club, right? Central Ohio also, correct?
Yep, at Kaufman High School. Shout out to Coach Van Gundy, Schlegel, Caleb, Jeremiah Weber, Coach Nadeau. We're doing pretty good things over there right now. And then Beast Mode's been going strong for the last 5 years. And we're just trying to keep that train rolling a little bit.
Nice. Coach Mizer, what's going on? Fill our listeners in a little bit.
I went to Massillon Perry High School. Unlike Jason, I wasn't a 2-time state champ. I made the finals once. And then I ended up going to Heidelberg. And then I wrestled there for 4 years and was a 3-time qualifier. And I made the finals there my senior year in 2010. And then I started coached a little bit at Heidelberg, went to a D3 school out in Iowa called Buena Vista. And then the opportunity at Muskingum came open. And so it was about an hour from my parents. And so I've been here since 2014, I believe, as the head coach at Muskingum.
Nice. And you're mostly from Ohio, right? You said you traveled out to Ohio, all right. So let's get into it right away, right? We were with this a few days ago, maybe a week ago, right? Jason, you're talking about senior nationals, right? It's not too
talking about senior nationals, and then Zach decided to blow up my Twitter feed and come get me.
You're welcome.
And you guys you guys know each other, right? So it wasn't out of left field, right? I'm sure that wasn't.
It wasn't out of left field. Usually when Zach hits me up on Twitter or says something to me, it's usually positive and it's usually funny. But that day, he decided to come with a little heat.
Yeah.
I was funny and positive.
You were.
So Jason, your take is, these off-season tournaments, right? Building an impression on coaches, correct?
Yeah. And I think, I don't think that they're the priority, but I think if wrestling is your passion, wrestling is your vehicle, or let's say, if you think you can get to a college or, the opportunity to wrestle at a college, I think, some of these national tournaments, especially for high school kids, are important to get on the radar. I don't think it's the actual thing that you have to have, but I think it gets you on that radar. And that was what I said, it's coming up fast. It's time to make an impression because, we've had a couple Beast Mode kids that one just signed to go to Northern Illinois, who wrestles for Indian Lake. And, he kind of wasn't really recruited, went out there, wrestled really well, then had a good season coming back. And then boom, he started not getting talked to by D3 schools anymore. It was D2 schools, D1 schools started calling him. So I think if you go out there and you can open some eyes, and then it opens you up to the coaches, I think.
All right, Coach, and what's your take?
Well, like I said, he just quote tweeted that NHSCA stuff was coming up soon. And so he said, great opportunity to make an impression. And I said that most coaches aren't as impressed with results. They're more impressed with, I said, work ethic and drilling habits. And so I think we were going back and forth on that. I think we talked a little bit afterwards too. It's a little bit of a difference because of COVID, because there isn't a lot of high school results right now. And so I get a little bit with last year not having a state tournament. So if you had a kid who maybe wasn't great as a sophomore, didn't get that opportunity as a junior to compete at the state tournaments, and now, you know, kind of some matches a little bit as a senior year, I can see a little bit of that. But for the most part, I still think the best kids, you're going to get better. You're going to get noticed, I think, is finding workout partners in the wrestling room. And so going to national tournaments or national tournaments, whatever, is beneficial for a little bit, but a lot of those are just money grabs. They're just trying to get you to pay $100, $200, $300. I think that money's better invested in even a club like Beast Mode, because you're going to get the workout partners, and that's how you're going to get better. And so, I mean, some coaches, obviously you could place at a tournament like that and not necessarily go D1 or D2, because coaches are looking for a specific style or how you wrestled or a weight class. And so my whole take is more of, you know, impress them during practice, get good grades, do well, you know, in the classroom. And then I think it's a coach's job as well to make sure that coaches are on the radar of these kids. And so, like, I see a lot of D1 football coaches will be posting, like, you know, looking for recruits in this area. And then their timeline is just blown up with kids that are like, here's my huddle tape. And everyone's just posting all their stuff on there. Recruit me. And so, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that's the best route to go for high school kids, but there's a way to get your film in your tendencies and things in front of college coaches without having to go to all these different individual national tournaments, was kind of my take. Obviously, I think Fargo's important. I mean, I wrestled at it was junior nationals. I didn't go to senior nationals that year. But I mean, I've been to some of those tournaments. And so, yeah, I think some of those are decent. But my whole take was always that you don't need to be spending hundreds of dollars to go to a tournament to get noticed by a college coach.
Right. Yeah. Fargo, obviously, you know, head and shoulders above the rest. And
yeah,
I mean, even for us old guys, JB, that senior national is pretty deep, right? Compared to what it is now. Right?
Yeah, and compared to what it is now you get to showcase your skills as a freshman all the way through. Mm-hmm. You know, back then when us old timers did it, it was just your senior year. You had to be a placer. I think you had to place in the top 3 to even get in. And,
I thought it was finalist back in the day, JB.
Originally, I think it kind of.
It might have been. Jared obviously wouldn't know that because he was always the finalist. But yeah, but that's the thing. You say that, and then you talk about Fargo. Fargo's the most expensive tournament to go to. Like, that's the most expensive.
And 2 years ago, it went up drastically, I believe. Right? I mean,
right.
For Ohio guys.
And Ohio does a great job. Don't get me wrong. Ohio does a great job with their training facility, like their training facility site that they get, the training that they put in, the people they bring in for their camps. I mean, they do a great job. But that's the whole thing with, like, especially my club. We don't make the kids pay to go to those tournaments. We help them cover it. Some kids don't pay. We pay for them out of our thing. I mean, we run it as a nonprofit. I don't make any money off of it. But, you know, but you say that about huddle film. And that's kind of like with wrestling. It's hard to gauge how good a kid is off of watching his film. I mean, because let's be honest, especially in high school, not everybody is at the same skill set. So I can send you a video of me just running through 15 kids in a row that, you know, maybe 3 or 4 year wrestlers, and I'm a 10-year wrestler, and I'm just trashing dudes, hitting all kinds of sweet takedowns and looking great, showing good technique. And then a coach is going to be like, well, okay. But then what? Well, I was a state qualifier, but I didn't get to go to the state tournament. Well, that doesn't really tell a coach anything, even at the D3 level, or it doesn't matter what level. I mean, if you say, hey, I beat a 2-time state placer from Pennsylvania, they'll be like, oh, okay, well, maybe I should look at this guy a little bit. And then maybe I'll call his head coach and say, well, what's this guy's grades like? How does he drill? What's his work ethic? I think that's when I said make an impression. That's what I meant. Like, open someone's eyes and make them look out for you, instead of you always calling someone, sending emails, sending tweets, sending videos, because I don't think you can really get a good gauge off of the video.
But how many kids would you say in your program, and you can, I mean, obviously you're gonna be a little bit biased because, I mean, they're your kids, but how many of those kids are going to the Division I level and they're not just dummies, that they're actually competing, being on a roster, competing at a high level, and they're not just, you know, the third string 57 pounder that's going to be a good drill partner for the guy that's going to be the starter?
I mean, as of right now today, we got probably 2 kids that are D1 kids, maybe 2, with the work ethic. like how their talent is, like we have 5 with the talent, but the work ethic, the drilling, the schoolwork, I mean, we probably got 2.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's on them. I mean, some of them have room to grow still and to figure out if that's really what they want. They want to make wrestling their life. Because at the D1 level, wrestling's your life. You have to make it your life. You have to make it, set your goals and set your daily affirmations, all things like that for wrestling. Some kids aren't built that way. I wasn't built that way. I was just fortunate to be super talented, and I got to college and experienced experience in college. I mean, that's what I wanted to do. So a smaller school, like if I could have went to a Heidelberg before, or maybe went the JUCO route before, I probably would have excelled better. And that's what I teach my kids. I'm trying to teach these kids to not look at the D1 level first. Open your mind, expand your brand, and look at other places. Don't just think Ohio State's the only stop in America to wrestle at, because it's not. It's not.
But so going back to the coaches thing, I'm saying you said you have 2 kids, so it's not that hard or difficult for you to reach out to coaches, because you're not reaching out for 10 or 15 kids on your team saying these are D1 guys. I'm saying you wrestle Division I. You're a great wrestler, so you know who's going to make it and who can't make it. You know the lifestyle, the work ethic. So I'm saying that if you have a kid that isn't being highly recruited, that can make it at that next level, all it takes is you get 1 kid there, and all of a sudden they pan out because you were right. Then the coach is going to come back to you when you say, hey, I have this kid or that kid. But obviously, if you keep saying, oh, this kid's D1 and he goes there and quits, they're going to obviously stop wasting their time. But you know what it takes. So that's what I'm saying is, I think because most clubs don't have 10, 15, 20 kids and they're out there calling them. I mean, some coaches do, because I get those chain emails from all these coaches about, recruit this kid or that kid. I'm just saying the D1 kid, it's easy not easy, but I'm saying, enough people that if there's only 1, 2, 3 kids, I think it's relatively easy to reach out to coaches. Hey, we got this diamond in the rough. He's pretty tough. He goes well with this kid or that kid. He's beating this kid at a tournament, because usually kids show a little bit of promise before their senior year.
Right. But there you just said it. He beat this kid. So you need a result.
I'm saying in practice, matches. Well, in a normal year, they're wrestling matches. They're not just, I said before, this is outside of a COVID year. You don't need to be doing all of this stuff, because they're wrestling 30 matches in a regular season.
Even out of a COVID year, say 2 years ago, if you had a kid that got 5th place at the state tournament, okay, he got 5th, but maybe he didn't really beat a standout kid through the year, but he still got 5th. I can't call Kerry Colot on the phone and be like, hey, Kerry, I got this kid that got 5th. He really wants to go to the Army. And he'd be like, okay, cool. Well, he's a 3-6 student. He really works hard.
Navy,
okay, cool.
Navy,
but he's still
right?
Navy. Yeah, sorry. Navy. My bad.
That's a bad word, man.
Right. At Navy, my bad. Shucks at the Army. But no, but if I call him, he's gonna want to look at something else. He's gonna have to see it for himself. I'm Jason Barnett. To Kerry Colot, he has no idea who I am. He has no idea my background. He has no idea anything. He's gonna want to see something more than, okay, I got this one-time placer from Ohio that got 5th. He needs more than grade point average. He needs more than work ethic and my word, because who am I? He needs to see something else.
But if you're putting kids out continuously, right, then your brand builds for your club, and
right,
your word
which
builds.
is a good thing. Yeah, and that's what I have to go. It's like, oh, we had Don Demas. Now we're working towards, Seth Shoemate doing pretty good things in Ohio right now. We have Hayden Daniels that's been in the club, but he goes to other stuff. Like, we have these big name kids that are coming out. That starts to help, but still at the end of the day, you don't see me at tournaments running around saying, hey, I'm in front of this program. Like, that's not my style. So you're not going to know that I'm running beast mode you don't see me doing it.
Right.
So that's kind of my thing. I want the kids to do the work. I don't want to do the work. What does that mean if I'm doing the work for them? They got to put the effort in if it's what they want to do.
And you'll assist them get there, right? I mean, they say, hey, I'm trying to get here. Then you reach out.
I want to see it. Like, I tell kids when we go out to those tournaments, make a resume, put your grade point average, put the stuff that you do, put the other sports that you do, put things that you think you might want to major in. Like, we do all those things with the kids that kind of prepare them. But after that, it's on you. If you can get an attention, then I'm going to go all for you. I'm going to do whatever I can to put you in the spot that you want to be, or help you go there and guide you in that way, and be as brutally honest as I can about where I think you should be. I don't think every kid's a D1 wrestler. That's crazy talk. I mean, especially with the way Central Ohio, especially in Central Ohio, how Central Ohio's wrestling is going right now. Not every kid's a D1 wrestler. So you have to be open and honest and kind of smooth it out with the parents kind of more than you have to do with the kid. The kid knows how good they are. But my whole thing is, I think you need results. You need some results. I don't think you have to go all over the place all year long and wrestle 75 tournaments, but you have to put the work in.
I think you put the work in practice, but going back to what you're saying, I think Navy's different because of their academic requirements and the people that they can get into the school. But I'm saying maybe like Campbell, or because we were talking afterwards, different schools besides the MAC. But what's stopping a kid who maybe isn't getting recruited to just saying, you know what, I'm the hardest worker in the room. I'm just going to go there. I'm going to walk on that team. I'm going to show them that I'm the baddest dude. You know what I mean? Nothing's stopping the kids. I feel like that the issue is everyone wants that scholarship. Everyone thinks that, you know, I'm a state placer, I'm a state champ, I'm getting this full ride.
It's an ego thing, right? It's an ego.
Yeah.
I need they money. Do it for the ego instead of the fit.
Yeah.
Right. Parents.
Well, let's just
more so too.
Let's just be honest. But let's just be honest with kids that are going to watch this, people that are going to listen to this. Wrestling ain't giving out money like that. I mean, the best wrestlers in the country aren't getting money. They may make it look like they're getting money, but they're not getting money. So parents need to know that going in too. Your ego needs to be checked at the door too. One of the hardest working kids I've ever coached, he tried to walk on at Ohio State. He was a 3-time state qualifier, a match away from placing, and couldn't walk on. He ended up being a 4-time a club All-American, the NCAA, whatever. He wrestled the club team and was a 4-time All-American for them, and still couldn't make the team as a walk-on. So, I mean, I get what you're saying, but that doesn't mean you get to just walk in a room. It doesn't mean that.
I know. I also know someone that went to Ohio State as on the club team and got elevated to the varsity and then ended up wrestling a couple of duels for Ohio State. And so there's different situations for everyone depending on the program needs. Obviously, if they get depleted at a weight class, but I'm just saying that not everyone needs, and some kids that do get recruited end up, you know, basically getting cut. They're going to take away their money. They don't want them on the team. I mean, so it can go either way. I'm just saying that kids can also just, if they think I'm going to Okie State, you know what I mean? They can then put your mind to it and make it happen. It's kind of my whole thing, but you don't necessarily need to be wrestling or spending $200, $300, $400 going to all these different tournaments. Is just because I think that it's better invested if it's in the practice room. And I think that if they're getting in a good room, then they're going to figure out that I don't necessarily belong at this school or that school because the kids that are going there are giving them that work.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I mean, really, like say push. We only push our kids for 2 things. We push them to go to the senior nationals or high school nationals now. And we push them to go to Fargo because those are the 2 that are going to get you noticed. Those are the 2 that people look at. Those are the 2 where college coaches are at. I mean, those are the 2 that are going to get you even a shot. Like even a shot. You're correct. Like it's not for everybody. It's not, but you have to go to something. You can't, like, there's not many kids now, especially like you said, Okie State. John Smith has come out and said he will never recruit anyone that has never wrestled at Fargo. He will never do it. He will never do it. So some schools like that, you're just X'd out. I don't know too many kids now that are getting that don't wrestle at all in the off season. You have to put in. I mean, just because you practice, that's not going to get you your results. You think that's going to get you the results just because you put in work?
No, I'm saying that you have to go to so you can go to Super 32, go to Flow Nationals. We're going to Fargo. You're going to Super 32. I'm saying that there's all these huge tournaments that are now increasing in price, and it keeps going up and it keeps going up. And everyone's like, oh, you got to go to this tournament. You got to go to that tournament. So you just said, my guys got to go to these 2. Well, Flow Nationals and Super 32, I would say is probably bigger now. I would say that the competition is probably better there than it is at junior, senior nationals.
That's true. And that's why I only took 1 kid to Super 32. Actually, no, that's false. I had 3 kids that went to Super 32. Not every kid in the club is saying, hey, buddy, you should go to Super 32. It'll be great. You should do it. No, you got those 2 or 3 kids that have the skill set to go out there and perform and win matches. One of the kids is ranked 2nd in the state right now and went 2-2 at Super 32. So You're not going to tell a kid that everybody go to Super 32.
Right.
Now, there's people out there that do that. You're absolutely right. And that's kind of my thing with clubs in general is it's people's careers. People are setting up clubs to have a career out of being a club coach. Those are the people that are out here that will push to go to all these tournaments to make that extra money because that's how they make their money. And I don't agree with that, but you can't knock somebody's hustle either.
No, that was just my thing is I don't think that you need to be going to all these different things. Like I said, I went 2-2 at Fargo. You know what I mean? And I was a runner-up as a junior. So, I mean, some MAC schools were calling and things like that. But like my body of work outside of that wasn't like I was an amazing rock star type of a person. Again, I just think you don't need to invest hundreds and hundreds of dollars. It's almost like basketball AAU where they feel like they got to put all this stuff in there. I would myself, like my whole point is just, I would rather instead of going to these tournaments, invest money in a good club. So then you're going to get better reps in practice because I think that's where you get better. You don't get better in a match because you revert back to the same stuff that you've always done. And so that would be my whatever to parents is just, instead of thinking, oh, we got to spend $300 to go to this tournament or he's got to do that. You might want to look at going to a club where there's going to be A, better coaching than what you probably have in high school, and B, better workout partners, because that's where you're going to get better. That's the only reason that I would say a decent wrestler to begin with is when you walk into a wrestling room that has Jason Johnstone and Steve Luke and Dustin Schlater and Thomas Strawn. And I can go on and on about all the guys that were, state champs and then went on national champs, national qualifiers. And it's because you see that work ethic in the room. It's like, holy crap, if I want that, I got to do this. And so that's my whole.
But what did those dudes do? They wrestled all the time. The time.
But you guys are both from programs, right, that had almost a club mentality, right? You're both your guys' rooms were, up here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
true, but I also never wrestled. I never wrestled outside of wrestling season.
Oh, really? See, I didn't do a whole lot either, to be honest. And I was the oldest one through, and my dad, didn't.
Yeah,
my brothers wrestled freestyle. I played football, and I
wrestled my first freestyle match at University Nationals in 2002, and I walked out and wrestled Jared Lawrence, the first match. Like that's my first match ever freestyle. Like I didn't. That's why I said I wasn't one of those guys. So like I played 3 sports. So I was always in summertime was baseball season. My dad he broke them all down. Football season, wrestling season, baseball season. And you're playing all 3 because we want you to be all around good athlete.
Right.
That's what it was.
Right.
So I get it. You can get I was proof you can get recruited and not go to anything. Yeah. But you better have one hell of the credentials of high school
and work ethic. Like Coach Mizer said, right? Coach, you're saying you got to have that work ethic and put the work in and don't need to go. So I guess your message, Coach Mizer, that, if you're not surrounded by a good club, don't start chasing tournaments. Go find that club that you can fit in, that you're going to get guidance, right? We have plenty of them in Ohio. Shoot, we have plenty in Central Ohio, right? You guys want to talk about that a little bit? Central Ohio, I think in a couple, it's come a long way in the last 5-10 years, I think.
It absolutely has. And, I think that's why we're going to start seeing a switch and a shift in the talent in Columbus is because a lot of these guys have a bunch of places to wrestle at. The next thing we got to do is get Central Ohio coaches on board. Mm-hmm. A lot of the coaches are they hold on tight to their kids. They hold on tight to them.
Territorial,
right? Yeah. So like when a kid wants to venture out and go do something, especially you're talking to one of the most hated dudes in Central Ohio, like they'll be like, we want to go to beast mode. And coaches are like, hell no, you ain't going, because, they think that, whatever they think, I don't know, but it benefits to bounce around. It benefits to learn different styles. It benefits to learn from, Bracken Mead's going to show you something that I might not show you. Moran's definitely going to show you stuff that I'm not going to learn. Ross Thatcher is going to show you stuff that I don't know. Logan Stieber knows a whole lot of stuff. Moran knows a whole lot of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of places in Columbus right now to get kids good. It's just some of the coaches got to let the reins loose and let these kids bounce around and get coached.
It's a balancing act too, though, right? You don't want to bounce too much, then you don't have an identity. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Coach.
true. And that's my kind of thing with clubs in general is sometimes you don't really have a kid long enough to teach them an identity or teach a philosophy. It's kind of just like, summer camps where you kind of go through some moves here and there, and then you let them wrestle and just try to touch up their technique while they're in there. It's kind of hard. That's the big thing.
So, Jay, do you think that coaches are like that because they're worried that because you coach at Kaufman too, that like, oh boy, he's going to start poaching some of these kids to come in and wrestle? Because obviously I think wrestlers develop a good relationship with their coaches for the most part. And so if they see it with their club coach, you know what I mean? And so like at Perry, we always had Riggs was always there. He was the guy that did everything. And so there wasn't a need for that, but I could just, you know what I mean? You could see where a coach would be like, oh man, he's going to build this great relationship with him. He's a good dude. And then all of a sudden now their stud's going to be thinking about transferring to Kaufman. I don't even know the transfer stuff for you guys.
No. Well, to go to Dublin Kaufman, you have to live in the district. Like there's no open enrollment. There's nothing like that. Like a lot of schools have, especially up north.
Even private schools in Central Ohio too, right? You got to live in the district for the private schools.
Yeah, even private schools have borders and stuff. So, you can't just bounce around. I can't just walk into a kid and be like, hey, come to Dublin Kaufman. Kaufman is a pretty pricey area to live. So, a lot of families aren't just going to be able to up and move their whole lives and just buy a house in Dublin. You may be truthfully honest and say what I really want to say, or you want me to be.
That's what we're here for. Let's go.
That's what we're here for.
If you're so worried about, just say, if you're worried about me coaching your kid and you think he's going to leave, then you need to work harder.
Mm-hmm.
Then you need to do more. You need to get on flow wrestling, learn more technique. You need to learn more stuff. If you think I'm going to steal your kid, learn more, get better at coaching, do more things, put more effort out, show your kid that you're there for them to get better and be better. If a kid leaves a program, it's because he thinks somewhere else is better.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere else is going to get him to his goal. So if that's what you think I'm doing, then outwork us, outwork me, outwork Colin, outwork someone, outwork those guys. Don't sit back and complain. That's what I love about Northern Ohio. The coaches don't sit around at a tournament and go, well, you know what, man, that kid was in my program when he was in 5th grade and then he left and went to Perry. That's bullcrap. No, they go work. They go, They coach kids up. They get them better.
My kids, I'm saying go to Burnett's, man. Go wrestle there. Obviously, we're a small program, but up here in North Central Ohio, we're pretty.
But I think you're right too. With us coming from, all three of us came from 3 highly profiled programs, and I think. So we kind of have those things where we were fortunate enough to be at good places when they were firing on all cylinders. So, Perry's still doing the thing like they always been. I think the Catholic schools are falling on hard times with enrollment and things like that. But, that's what I said. You just got to work. You got to work. Do you care about coaching wrestling? Are you in it to coach the kids? Then coach them up. Don't worry about what I'm doing. Don't worry about what the next guy's doing. Work your butt off.
Right. So Coach Mizer, so what's your take on Central Ohio, right? You come from Perry, and that's a little different, right? We were just talking about enrollment. They have open, statewide enrollment, right? So that's a little different scenario there.
I don't know if it still is. I'm assuming that it still is, but it was. I remember when I was there. We had kids we had a couple kids from Akron that would drive down for stuff. So it was a wide array of kids that ended up there. Like I said, but that was back in 2004, 5. So that was a while ago. But I think going back to I would say, even when it comes to college, I would say that some of those Central Ohio coaches seem to be tight gripped with who or what schools are going to let them even look at. Cause I know before, we've reached out to some places and haven't had the most success and I'm just saying we're trying to get kids' contact information, not that they're not sending us kids. I'm just trying to reach out and kind of introduce ourselves and things. And so I think a lot of times they look at it as well, no, this kid won't fit in well for you guys. He's from Columbus. I'm like, that we're an hour away. It's not that big of a deal. And so I feel like that there's so much talent in Columbus. I think that it is getting better and better. Like he said, with all these programs, I think it's improving greatly. And so I think that some of the coaches need to hey, there's more to, I would say, to wrestling or even to Ohio than just Columbus, to kind of spread your wings a little bit and get out there. Because again, there's some good kids that are wrestling in the state of Ohio in that area that aren't even wrestling in college, or that they go for a year, or they're, I'm just going to go to Ohio State. Like, there's just so many kids that have the talent and the ability to wrestle at D2, D3, NAI. I mean, there's all sorts of options for kids. And it seems like, and I don't know if it's just the way that the kids are. I mean, Jay, you're a Columbus kid. Like, I mean, and obviously you still live in the area. Like, is there just something about Columbus that gets kids to not want to leave the area? But it just seems like there's a lot of good kids that are in there that then all of a sudden it's like time to graduate. And then it's all of a sudden they're a year later, they're back to, you know what I mean, the same place that they've been for the last 18 years.
Yeah, it's the mentality. I mean, Columbus is really good at basketball. Columbus is really good at football. And a lot of these kids go through their school and they see their buddies all get D1 scholarships to go play football.
Buckeye brainwash, right? Brainwash Buckeyes, right? I mean,
yeah, but it's not even just Buckeyes, but they see all these kids go and play football in MAC schools. They see all these kids going to play football and basketball at all these schools, and they're like, well, why am I not getting a Division I scholarship? Like, why can't I wrestle Division I? I think I can go D1.
Back to the ego thing, right?
Yeah, it's back to the ego, and people don't realize, well, there's 132 Division I football teams. There's 200 Division I basketball teams. Right. I mean, if Pepperdine had a wrestling team, it'd be Division III. I mean, like it's a 3,000 people enrollment. So like, you know, kids got to get out of that mentality. Like, I preach JUCO. I think JUCO was great. JUCO was one of the best things I ever did. It grew me up in the classroom. It grew me up. It matured me. It especially got me better at wrestling with the room that I was in at Iowa Central. I mean, so I try to get kids that way. Like, hey, you know, coaches like to see this stuff. You don't got the grades. Hey, look at this route. There's so many JUCOs that you can go to. There's so many D3 schools that you can go to. It's like, you know, give that a shot. Don't just give up just because you're like, I ain't get a D1 scholarship, so I'm just not going to wrestle. Like, I think that's, that's crazy.
Right. Well, I don't think you guys mentioned this. Jay, you were what, third JUCO?
Yeah.
Third?
Yeah.
Coach Mizer, were you runner up?
Yeah.
At Heidelberg?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So, I mean, right, you guys had success, right? You know, it wasn't, you know, D1, but at the end of the day, that you're a college athlete. You know, there's no reason, you know, people aren't asking what division was that, right, outside of wrestling, right? It's an Eagle. Right?
Yeah. Me and Mizer had those talks when, you know, like when, especially in my dark days of cutting all that weight, when I was with him, I was sitting there talking to him, and my whole thing was like, you know, I would always be like, man, you know, people give D3 such a hard time, but the wrestling's tough. You know, the kids are tough. And I was like, but at the end of the day, the trophy's the same. Like the thing you get at the end of the day is the same one that you're going to see the D1 guy get. It's the same one.
Right.
So when someone sees you later on in life, they'll be like, hey, that dude was an NCAA All-American. They're not going to say Division I NCAA All-American, Division II NCAA All-American. They're going to say, hey, that dude was an NCAA All-American a couple times. He was an NCAA scholar athlete. Like, those are big deals. Like, those are things that you should strive for, and just don't give up on those goals because it's not at the highest level.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, dudes still go play minor league baseball.
Right.
They just don't quit because
the degree doesn't say Division III on it when you're applying it, you know, for a job.
Right. Exactly. I mean, those dudes at Mount Union winning all those football rings, they look just like Ohio State.
Good point. So, and I mean, you can even argue, right, Zach, that I mean, D3 sometimes tougher than D2, right?
I mean, I would say, I mean, NAIA D2, D3. I mean, I would say, I mean, it's relatively close because you look at like Wartburg. Wartburg is Division I powerhouse or Division III powerhouse that hangs with and sometimes beats the D2 champ. And so, I mean, we went to a tournament. I remember the Wheaton tournament, a D3 tournament, and Parkside used to go. And so D2, and I remember the one year, I think they had 5 or 6 kids in the finals of this tournament, but they finished like top 5 as a team in the nation there. So I think good wrestling is good wrestling. You're going to find it anywhere. Like, I'm not saying that I think I could have been a Division I All-American, but I think that in the right situation, I could have been competitive in matches against Division I people. And so I think that's what people walk into a D3 room sometimes, or they see D3 and they're like, oh boy, I'm going to crush these kids. And why do I think that? Is because that was my mentality when I went to Division III. I walked in, I was like, I'm going to kill everyone. Like, I think I'm going to be the baddest dude on the planet, because I went to Perry and I thought I was, you know, the man. So I was like, oh, this D3, I'm going to be awesome. And then my first wrestle off my freshman year, I lost 15-2. And I was like, oh boy,
Then Joe Flug was in the room.
Yeah, so Joe Flug was one that beat me 15-2. And I was like, all right, I am not good at wrestling anymore. I got to get back to work.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, he was tough. So he still is tough.
Yes. And he's an outlier, but still there's
Yeah.
good kids at Division III. I know that Joey went Division I out of high school, but I'm saying, but those kids, I mean, especially more often now, you're seeing a trickle down of kids that start out at Division I or Division II, and it doesn't work for whatever reason. And here you are at Division III or Division II. Joey Davis, you know what I mean? Obviously a D1 talent that went Division II at Notre Dame. And so there's plenty of people that I think that are good enough probably to go Division I, but for whatever reason, whether it's, you know, mentality or whether sometimes it's just class size. Kids think they're going to get lost. They're not going to go to class at a Division I school. So they hunker down and look at a Division III school, but there's still really good competition in a Division III environment. It's just not nearly as deep, I would say, as Division I, where you look at a national tournament sometimes and you're like, oh man, like last year at 33, if they would have wrestled it would have been insane. It would have been awesome to see the Division I national finals at 133. Usually the depth like that isn't there in Division III, but those top 2 or 3 guys, I mean, you just saw, I mean, Sterling just did, I mean, he wrestled
RBY,
right? Yeah, he just wrestled him. And then obviously they did jiu-jitsu, but I want to say he might have took second, third, fourth. I don't think that he won it at Cortland. I don't remember because he was a year older than me. But just, I mean, and I know he's been out of it and it was a little bit of a different thing, but obviously he's still tough. You know what I mean? He didn't wrestle Division I. And so there's just things where there's great talent at Division III. Riley Lefevre was a 4-time champ. He was training at Nittany Lion Wrestling Club now. I mean, so there's plenty of good. Joe Rao makes the world team in Greco and he went to Elmhurst. I mean, there's just so many kids that are wrestling Division III that are still really freaking good that sometimes people just get that in their mind that, oh, it's Division III and they pay to wrestle. They're not very good. I mean, I would say the kids that wrestle at Division III love wrestling more because they're actually paying money to go and wrestle in college.
Right. I mean, Tervel's another one, right? Another Central Ohio guy.
Yeah.
Tervel and his accomplishments. So no, I think you guys are hitting the nail on the head. And, these parents need to hear that, right? It's not I was talking with, Tanner Sewell, a couple episodes ago and, the misconceptions that parents have, they're either not thinking big enough or, they don't understand the process of getting to college and what it takes in having the right fit. There's so many things, right? Do they have a guy at 141? Well, why are you going there if you're going to be at backup for 4 or 5 years, just to say you're a D1 athlete and you can be competing, getting an education and being in the right spot. So no, that RBY Sterling, I don't know. I've had a few conversations. I think that, maybe a ticket or a way for our sport to grow. I think we need more crossover like that. We have these RTCs and then we have these MMA gyms, right? They're both top tier athletes they're trying to train, right? And I think that might help if there's some more crossover like that, training wise, you share the funds, you share the facilities, right? It's not cheap to run a facility, right? There's some, yeah. So you start working together and you have these crossovers, MMA, we know wrestlers translate real well. So, I don't know. I think there's something there. I've had a conversation a few times, but there's something there.
I do too, and I think Flow is doing a great job with doing those special matchups and things that they're doing. But I think that they should do something in the off season with the D2 guys and the D3 guys and the NAI guys, like the top 3 guys. Bring them in and put them on a card. Let them compete against some of these D1 guys and let kids see how, like, hey, if let's just say RBY wrestles a kid from D2 and he beats him by 3 points. They're going to be like, oh, dang.
Who's this guy? Right.
Who's this guy? This guy's pretty good. And I mean, it doesn't have to be national champ versus national champ. Just let them wrestle a pretty tough, D1 guy that's good. And a D1, a national champ from D2 or D3, let them wrestle those guys and let them see. I mean, let people see it on national scale because that's the only way they're going to see it. And they used to do that way back in the day where they let the national champs wrestle each other.
Right.
So like bring something back, bring some guys back and let that happen.
Right. What's your take, Zach? And
No, I think that would be awesome. Like you said, kind of after season 2. Again, I think just getting it, I would be even fine with if they were do more cards like they just did when you're going back to like the MMA type of thing, if they would do a period of folk style or do a match of that and then do 5 or 10 minutes of, like no striking type of stuff, like who wouldn't pay money to watch Burroughs do that against, I'm trying to think, Habib, maybe. Who wouldn't pay
They're
big
talking
money?
that, right? They're talking.
It'd be the hugest pay-per-view
Right.
ever, because the wrestling freaks would come out.
And these old guys that are, not on the Olympic ladder will come out, right? We have Flieger and Dubuque tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're my age. I'm like, heck no, man.
Nah.
Nah. Obviously, they're a different level. They're a different level, right? But
after 30, it's a done deal, buddy.
Right. So no, I think we're in a good spot. Considering COVID. Really blessed with Rockfin and Flow putting on these cards, giving us fans, those outlets. And you're seeing it, right? Floyd and Connor and Box, and right now you have Askren coming up. I don't know if that's official, if that's still on with, was it Logan Paul or Jake Paul or something like that. You're seeing these crossover matches, and that's what people want to see. No one cares about a belt anymore in MMA, right? They want to see these super matches and see the unseen, right? So I guess as coaches, what have you guys learned? We talked about the big tournaments and having that impression, right? Having that impression on people. But what have you guys learned, I guess, from COVID as a coach?
Go ahead, Zach.
More of, even like right now, it's still adapting on the fly. We're supposed to compete for the first time this year on Sunday. We're on conference calls. We're on all sorts of stuff, just trying to get these kids to get out there and actually get to compete. I think a lot of times we take it for granted. At least I think that some of the guys on our team did. I know I did, of just thinking that every winter, here comes wrestling season. And then all of a sudden it just got shut down. We're like, oh, what do we do now? And then I think it really put some emphasis on, I would say, the individual to get some work in, because there was a lot of, my TV's going crazy. There was a lot of kids that didn't have anywhere to go in the off season. Like Jay was saying, that, they couldn't go into the Kaufman room and do anything. And so there's a lot of kids that couldn't find rooms. And so you kind of have to adapt there in that situation of, whether it's, I remember whenever I was little, I used to just do stance and motion in the backyard. Like I would just do that for 2 minutes at a time, because the period was 2 minutes. And so just things like that, where kids have to adapt. And as a coach, you're hoping that these kids are doing it in the off season. But right now there wasn't anything that they could go and get better at, because everything was closed. And so I know for us, it was like trying just to stay in contact with kids. I know with our kids on our team, I reached out and we had like a push-up competition to see who could do the most for, I want to say it was April maybe. And so I think the most I did in a month was 5,200 or something.
You did?
But
you did that?
I did that. Well, I tried to beat them.
Okay, good. That's good. That's cool.
I can't let these college kids beat me. Come on now.
Come on, show out, right? Or you, Ron Burgundy. I don't know if you heard. I said 1,000.
Yeah, I just did 1,000.
No, so no, you're right though. It falls back on the discipline of the kid, right?
Yeah.
So you guys competing this Sunday? You said first time. Where can people find that Muskegon on your website, or what is it gonna be live?
And so we're wrestling at Baldwin Wallace, and so they're supposed to have that live stream there. But again, because everything's so crazy now, we were in a conference call today about what it's like trying to get this stream going up, and so I'm hoping that we'll have that. But yeah, it'd probably be on what would it be? Muskie Sports. Something. The OAC has an app too, but I don't know if it'll be on there.
Okay.
We're trying. It's going to be through Track, so it's probably easier. You can just search on Track. Just Baldwin Wallace OAC Duels is what it's called. But yeah, we're just excited to get the kids on the mats because it's been a long time.
Awesome.
February.
Yeah, it's been a minute, right? Well, good
11
for you
months.
guys. Good for you guys. That has to be exciting getting going. So, what about you? What about you, Jason? What have you learned?
You just learn which kids want it at the high school level, like which kids really want to compete, which kids, really take wrestling seriously. And like you said, it kind of held the kids accountable for once. It's kind of a rough time for high school kids. They don't get to see their friends. They don't, in class, some are on, so it's kind of stressful on them mentally doing those things. But you kind of see which kids have that mental toughness and can battle through some things. And like I said, who really wanna wrestle. I mean, that's kind of what you see. And like you said, the discipline, and every day we were drilling with masks on. Now we're drilling with masks off. All the coaches have the mask on, and now put your mask back on.
Mhm.
Maybe we're going to wrestle with masks on in some places. Like, it's kind of like you said, a revolving door of different things and how it changes on the daily, and staying on your toes and rolling with the punches. And I think it's a great lesson for these high school kids to learn with growing up, and what life's going to hit them with in the next couple of years when they grow up. Is life isn't just so easy. You don't get to wake up every day and know your schedule. You don't know what you're going to have going on that day. So I mean, it's a good learning point for the kids. It kind of sucks last year for some of the seniors, and this year for the seniors, if we don't get to do it again. Like, who knows? We're still in limbo. We don't know what we're doing. We don't know what's going on with districts. They're talking about certain things. They're talking about having it in Columbus in a high school. Like, we don't know what's going on. So it's kind of at a crazy moment, and you just try to keep the kids focused. You got to see what kids are focused and what kids keep working and that really want to, see this thing through.
Right. It's control the controllables, and if anything, right. I tell my kids, I coach also, it's on you right now. It's on you. Some of these kids are sitting at home and not putting that extra work in. And in some ways it's easier to get ahead of the usual, those guys cutting corners or whatever it may be. So it's we'll see what happens here. So anything else you guys want to talk about before we jump off?
No, I think we're good. I think Zach got it today.
I just want to, first time I told Jay I would do this, I want to give a shout out to Peak Performance. They made our shirts for our national qualifier 2019. I know the guy that runs that. So Jay, if you want to give him your contact on that, I set you right up for it.
There you go.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. No, I do some things on the side. I do some things on the side with singlets, t-shirts, and things like that. So if anybody wants to, hit me up on Instagram, hit me up on Twitter. I got embracetheclimb.com is the website. So I just make everything affordable. So, nice. Some teams can't afford the Rudis, some teams can't afford, 15 things. They have smaller numbers, and I just accommodate them as best as I can.
Nice. Like you said earlier, you got to appreciate the hustle, right?
You got to appreciate the hustle. We're trying to do 17 different things over here.
Good, man. I hear you on that. So. Well, thanks, guys. Like I said, we need to get you back on separately, but I thought it'd be good to get you both on here, a little different format. And anything else you guys want to, debate, discuss on Twitter, and then in person, I guess, via Zoom, you guys hit me up and we can jump back on. So I appreciate it. Best of luck the rest of your season, fellas. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.